Hello all, my name's Reed. I've made a document that I use personally for hiring and companies I applied for as a pilot, and I have shared this and I've just updated this even though I'm at a company that I want to be at. Today I'll be talking primarily about the pilot pay of regional airlines, which I just recently updated. I'll take a small update for some major pilots and talk about some gross and net income information. Lastly, I will also talk about some retirement estimates. This is where this document that I'm showing you is located at, and this is me. That's what I just made this. Pretty much just doing this as a hobby, as something to do because I have a bunch of free time. And like I said, I made this document initially when I was looking for a regional airline job, and now I just do it for something to do. I estimate the regional pilot pay over 5 years, assuming an upgrade in 3 years. A lot of airlines, they want 1,000 per PIC time, and some people can get to a major airline before that and hop right over. As far as regional, some people say any major airline is better than any regional, but I think I'd rather be at a regional that looks more solid and this will be sticking around than going to a major airline that's at risk of bankruptcy, which I'll be talking a little bit about in the gross and net income section. I didn't pull out the regional airline incomes just because I guess I wasn't that interested in it, and I didn't think it was as big of a question as for a major airline. One of the things are regionals. They're a tool for majors to earn money. So when the times are good, they'll get paid, better contracts, and I think it's going into a hard and tough years where I think we're going to see increased levels of bankruptcy, mergers, and pay cuts. We've already seen a lot of mergers happen over the last few years. So I guess in a way, and bankruptcy. So I guess in a way, I don't know how many airlines there are really left to go bankrupt. But I updated this entire regional sheet. But any plans, if you want to get hired somewhere, they might be hiring today, having quick upgrades, but things could change completely anytime. So it's hard to predict exactly how something's going to be going. Some of the companies offer direct entry captain slots, but the fastest odds to captain are placed with junior pilots and the airline is growing in general. Most of the companies, the regionals, have longevity matches. So if you got lost your job from Spirit, my condolences to you. That's partly why I was updating this, because that must be super stressful. But so a lot of the places do have longevity matches, and if they do, they include the 401k schedules for that better retirement. The bonuses have largely gone away. I wouldn't think too much about bonuses personally, just because there's not that many and they're quite a bit smaller at this point. So taking a look at the regional pilot pay, I have some notes up here about how I did it and what I used, as well as some of the data sources. So if you click on the links in here, you'll be able to see, so for example, for Air Wisconsin, you'll be able to see their hiring page, their Glassdoor page, Airline Pilot Central, and Wikipedia. That's where I got a lot of the information, but some people do comment on the cells. So you can click on any of the cells, I believe, that you can comment and share an update, and I go in and update it every once in a while. This is the last update I plan to do for probably a while, but when people do send them to me directly, I do update it, or I have been anyway. This is the link that it's showing at, so it looks a little bit different than where I create it on my computer. This would be, for example, the Air Wisconsin hiring page. A lot of these pages, one of the things I've noticed is they can be out of date. So the information I get might be from either their hiring page or Airline Pilot Central, or someone just messaging me directly, or even you can search up the pilot contracts and find them up online and actually read them. I've done that for some of them. So for this Air Wisconsin, for example, this is some of the information that they have that you can look at in find out a whole bunch of information or some information on their company. This is probably, even though it's not always up to date, probably one of the better ways to learn about the airline, any particular airline, as well as if they're hiring or not and how to apply stuff like that. Glassdoor I used for these information, 2.9, you see 27%, 29%, and I convert this 2.9 to out of 5 to a score out of 100 just to make it easier to calculate the Glassdoor rating right here. Well, I should say this math that I use converts it to 100. You can see times 100. The Airline Pilot Central has a lot of good information. It can be the same thing or it can be out of date, such as pilot counts might be out of date, pay scales, stuff like that. And Wikipedia is a little bit good for when it was founded, where their headquarters are, and sometimes they'll show bankruptcies and stuff like that. Going back to the page here, this is just when I updated it. The airline information, airline headquarters when it started. My quick take, sometimes I get jump seaters that will ride along, or just researching on here or seeing news about different airlines. So I just put my quick take in here if I have something to put in there that I feel like. It's just the number of companies that use this for some of these averages math. The starting pay of most of the FOs, the top pay scale, a lot of the FOs, they'll top out at 5 years. The regionals want you to move up to captain. So then this is a captain starting in top pay. So a lot of the captain pay rates take longer to hit the top. These are some of the estimates, if I had them, of when you're going to upgrade. Minimum guarantees of the company. Any bonuses, you see they're somewhat small. They're not that much of not something I would include in my personal consideration. As well as some average pays here over 5 years, and then some average pays over there as well. This number must be wrong here, and I can see why, because it's not dividing it by here. So let me just, no, it is dividing it, but it must be wrong because it wouldn't be that amount. So this would be the average captain pay there. I'll try to fix this later. Glassdoor rating, this is just for the company overall. And I think these numbers can just have an idea of how happy the employees are. It's not always a good predictor if the company's going to be staying around or not. But sometimes the worst companies are pretty evident with their lower scores. Number of pilots, just if it's a smaller or larger company. These are the bases. And other notes, I try to include their 401k. For Air Wisconsin, for example, 3% direct. So they give everybody 3% as far as I could tell, and up to 8% 401k match. When I say up to 8%, including for CommutAir, up to 8% means that it could be a lot lower on your first year. There might be vesting programs, there might be stuff like that that will reduce that amount. Endeavor up to 12.5%, that might be after you've been there, say, 10 years or more before you get something like that. Over on the right side, these are some of the pay scales. Then I only did the first 5 years and then the top pay. And then first 5 years and then the top pay. I don't know if there's a whole lot more. Like I said, that to really get some hiring information, I would recommend clicking on their hiring page and getting better information there. I did try to include if they have longevity matches in here. And like I said, many of them do. Endeavor would be a notable one that does not say anything about a longevity match. There's 3 American-owned airlines, Envoy, Piedmont, and PSA, they all have what they call temporary pay rates. And since around 2024, I believe they've been extending them. And this line is just for their contractual pay rates. Their contractual pay rates are so much lower than the average industry average that unless something goes really bad in the economy, I think that they will be keeping their so-called temporary pay rates. And I put the same numbers for each Envoy, Piedmont, and PSA. I don't have a whole ton to say about in particular airlines. I guess I could say that Endeavor, Republic, and SkyWest probably seem like the top three regionals as far as I could tell. The American companies, PSA, Piedmont, and Envoy, seem like they don't have as good of a reputation, I would say. Air Wisconsin has been struggling, and I try to put that if I see that in there. They seem to be really struggling, finding their footing. Horizon Air is kind of interesting in the sense that they go up to Alaska. They're owned by Alaska. And I went to one of their job fairs, so Horizon and Alaska did them together. And I thought it was probably amongst the worst job fair experiences I had. It seemed very unorganized and unprofessional. And that being said, that they do seem to like, Alaska seems to like to pull their pilots from the Horizon Air pool. So if you're trying to go to Alaska, that might be where you'd want to go. And this one is one of them that's notably for me. They said they're hiring experienced FOs. So I took that to mean is they made a job opening for Spirit pilots, basically, without saying that it's for Spirit pilots. Mesa I left on here because just for comparison, and I use their latest rates. They've been merged with and bought by Republic, so I'll be deleting this at some point. I was not able to find exactly if they were still doing their hiring through a Republic or through Mesa. Some of the job listings on Mesa's website, they had job listings for mechanics and stuff like that, but I didn't see any for pilots, which makes me think they're in the process of merging the pilot groups. Mesa was also pretty interesting to me because I went to one of their job fairs. At the same job fair, I went to talk to them, and their greeting, this is no exaggeration, was, "Did you get in a DUI or what?" There was no hello, nothing, and that's kind of what Mesa was known for as well, of hiring people with perhaps a harder background. But now it's merging with Republic, so Mesa is one of the, I'd say, worst reputations in merging with one of the airlines with the better reputations. One of the nice things about Republic, as far as stability goes, is owned by a big part of it's owned by American Delta and United. SkyWest has been really stable because they fly for even Alaska on top of that, American Delta and United. SkyWest is kind of known for having a lot of bases, stability, flying all over North America, having that flying variety. So that's enough about the regionals, I think. I think hopefully that helps a little bit on some of how the regionals are doing today and the pay. I had one update on my major pilot tab. FedEx, they got their new contract, so I put that in here. I just added that in. So congrats to the FedEx pilots. And I thought it's kind of interesting to see what some of these new rates, how they jump from 81 to 113 an hour to start out, to 335 to 469 for a captain. And over 20 years, that adds over $1.5 million over 20 years of at least. Spirit, of course, they closed down, but I think I had this already at the last update. Then this is the gross net income. I added the tabs on in here. Average net profit for between 2004 to 2005. And this is just for major airlines. I didn't put any regionals in here. It's already a ton of information. All of this information I manually do. I don't do any automation, so I have just a bunch of tabs open. I open them up. I open those links that I showed you, and I type away. Well, that would be true for the regional pilot and major pilot. I didn't show you these tabs because this is where I get some of this information. A lot of it's in, if you type in the airline, you can type in, say, Alaska 10-K, and it'll give you that financial information. So it's where I've got this stuff. Some of this stuff was actually really hard to find back, say, 2005, but that's how long I tracked it for. So let's see here. Next, net profit percent. That's what this NP percent, which is the gross revenue divided by the net income. And if I click on that, you'd see the numbers that I was dividing. Gross revenue divided by net income. If you do see any errors, let me know. Like I said, I manually type it all in, so it's very likely that I made an error somewhere. The year over year, that's the change of their gross revenue. So that would be over here, you can see. Then G equals gross revenue, N equals net income, and the numbers are all in billions. So overall, you can see what the average year over year income is. Some of the companies are private, Avelo, so that I just can't get that information, or I don't know where it is. Breeze, it's private company, but it seems that passenger airlines have to report their information to this government entity, and it allows me to go pull that information out. So let's see here. Average net profit I did for the last 10 years, and then another column from 2006 to 2015. That was the previous 10-year period, and then from 2004 to 2025. You can kind of see what those look like, what those averages are. Alaska, for example, has been profitable that whole time on average, but then there are years that they have not been. 2020, 2008, and so on. Allegiant is another company that's been surprisingly, they grow pretty well in general. And I have not updated these numbers here, this calculation, so I do need to update this. But in general, they've been growing. And sorry that I didn't get that. One of the things of note that I found here, this is where all this data is coming from. The net income, you can start to see here, I color-coded it on here. There's a few good years where all the companies were basically making money, 2014 to 2018. 2019 was also really good. This American has been losing money in general, just for years. I personally think American is struggling, and I wouldn't be surprised if they go bankrupt again. But you can kind of see all the red here, all of these years coming up around the 2008 time frame. And there's quite a lot of red, in my view, that's showing up again. Spirit, of course, went bankrupt. And I think there's probably more bankruptcies coming. Hawaiian I kept on here mostly because I thought it was interesting just to compare it. It has merged with Alaska, which has been perhaps one of the better airlines. Allegiant has been generally profitable as well. These year-over-year information, this is a little bit more spread out. 2009 was most of the companies were shrinking year over year. 0.84 is a shrinking. 1.0 would be flat. 2020 was another year that they've been shrinking, and there's a bit more red popping up year over year. Then the net profit percentages, quite a lot of the companies, you see 2008 average company lost money. 2005, 2020 was average. I should say the average loss was around 26%. Not necessarily at the average company. That's just the numbers divided by my total number of companies that I have tracking. They do change a little bit for year to year based on how many companies I was able to find information for. I tried to update it like that. But the net profit percent, you can see a lot of red again. Same thing here. 2000 coming up to 2009 or so, 2008, a lot of companies are in red. And the same thing's happening since 2020. A lot of companies are in red. I will point out something here that Delta is basically red for every time period. And the reason why that is because they went bankrupt around this, I think it was this year, 2008. And that bankruptcy just shows a huge loss. And that those huge negative numbers then bring those whole scores down. And it's the same thing here. 2020, 1 year of heavy losses brings the whole average down. So it's not always 100% representative when you're looking at these averages, but it at least gives an idea of what might be going on with the company. Hawaiian, of course, they merged. JetBlue looks like they're struggling. Could be a bankruptcy coming up. Spirit went bankrupt. But you can see these years looked similar between Spirit and JetBlue. Hawaiian, Frontier is another one. There's a private company, but Frontier has been struggling for years. FedEx this is a whole company combined, not just the airline segment. And that's why a lot of people like FedEx as far as career stability. But of course, Amazon has been taking some of that flying. So it's been impacting to some degree, but they're still being profitable. Allegiant and Alaska are two that have been pretty good in general. I think enough of that one. We'll take a look at some retirement estimate. Oh, one of the things, the colors don't show up when I transfer them over to Google for whatever reason, and I don't know how to update it in Google. This retirement sheet here, I haven't updated this one, but this is just year zero. This is assuming the first year as a captain at a regional. Basically, it's from some time ago, and I had just made some estimates at 15% 401k contribution, and then the limits for the federal limits that of your own personal contributions, and then a total. So I just assuming a 6.5% rate of return, and it's all invested in some tax advantage accounts, basically a 401k. So this will be year zero, your approximate net worth, and then increasing with the increase in income, and at some point get into a major airline, and income increasing from there. This is all pretty conservative, but you see here after 10 years, you go from $43,000 to about $1 million. After 20 years, it'd go up to about almost $3 million, and you can see that really huge impact of compounding, because and this is in another 10 years you double it to over 6 million. So basically, if you started at 35 here, you could either have $1 million at 45, or 3 million at 55, or 6 million at 65, and retire what I think is be quite comfortable. I think that's about all I have. If you have any questions or updates, you can just comment on one of the cells. You should be able to just click on it and notify me of updates. Thanks for listening. Hopefully it helps you a little bit with your job search. Good luck with everything that you are going through, and I hope to see you in the right seat someday, or as a jump seater.